Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's get started with Week 50's Word Nerd Wednesday. Now, last series, we bounced back and forth between words from our Third Age Thursday readings, mostly in a long expected party, and our Second Age Saturday readings from Eldar and Arendis. This time around, I'm going to be doing something similar. I'm going to be picking words as I go along. I'll mostly be looking at words or names that show up in our readings from Thursdays and Saturdays. Today, we're going to take a look at a name that will show up in this week's reading in Eldar and Arendis. On Saturday, we're going to get to read the letter that Eldar delivered to his father, King Meneldur, a letter written by none other than King Gil-galad in Lindon. And it's his name, or rather names, that we'll take a look at today. Now, the first time that we see Gil-galad's name in The Lord of the Rings, it's in the second chapter, The Shadow of the Past. Gandalf is telling Frodo of the defeat of Sauron at the end of the Second Age. But for the moment, since most of all you need to know how this thing came to, and that will be tale enough, this is all that I will say. It was Gil-galad, Elven King, and Elendil of Westerness, who overthrew Sauron, though they themselves perished in the deed. And Isildur, Elendil's son, cut the ring from Sauron's hand and took it for his own. But where we start to hear more about him is in Chapter 11, A Knife in the Dark. There, Aragorn says, "It is told that Elendil stood there," and that would be atop Amansul, "watching for the coming of Gil-galad out of the west in the days of the last alliance." Now, when Mary asks for more info on Gil-galad, it's Sam who then recites these 3 verses. "Gil-galad was an elven king, of him the harpers sadly sing, the last whose realm was fair and free between the mountains and the sea. His sword was long, his lance was keen, his shining helm afar was seen. The countless stars of heaven's field were mirrored in his silver shield. But long ago he rode away, and where he dwelleth none can say, for into darkness fell his star in Mordor, where the shadows are." Now, you may already be wondering, where is the word nerdery, Alan? It's Wednesday. Where is my word nerdery? Well, folks, I wanted to read this passage to you because of a very few important lines in the passage. His shining helm afar was seen. The countless stars of heaven's field were mirrored in his silver shield are very important, as is, for into darkness fell his star. So keep those lines in mind as we get into the word nerdery. Now, much later in the chapter, in response to Mary asking Aragorn again to tell us of Gil-galad, Frodo says this: "Gil-galad was the last of the great elf kings of Middle-earth. Gil-galad is starlight in their tongue." And thus the word nerdery begins. Yes, Gil-galad is a Sindarin name, said by Frodo here to mean starlight. Now, the first element in the name is Gil, meaning star, bright spark, silver glint, twinkle of light. And we see this frequently. The name given to Eärendil's ship, Vingalad, after it became a star, was Gil-estel, star of high hope. It's also in the name of Aragorn's mother, Gilrain, netted stars. It's also one of Elbereth's titles, Gilthoniel, star kindler, as well as the name of the Gondorian city of Osgiliath, citadel of the stars, as well as Aragorn's name during his years of errantry in Gondor and Rohan, Thorongil, eagle of the stars. Now, the Galad element will undoubtedly be familiar to you from the name of everyone's favorite radiant elf, Galadriel. The word is Sindarin and means radiance, glittering reflection. Now, there is a long and convoluted story with this element that we'll get into sometime when I properly dive into Galadriel's name. But for now, it suffices to say that in the etymologies, Gil-galad's name is said to be Noldorin, not Sindarin, with the element Kalad, with a C, not a G, being the basis for the second part of Gil-galad's name, with the Kalad being lenited to Galad. So we'll just move on from there for now. Now, in the Shibboleth of Feanor, that's found in the Peoples of Middle-earth, Volume 12 of the History of Middle-earth, we read that Gil-galad was neither the High King's father name nor his mother name, but an epesse, or aftername. In a paragraph where Tolkien is discussing Galadriel's name, he writes, "Galad occurs also in the epesse of Eärenion, Scion of Kings, by which he was chiefly remembered in legend, Gil-galad, Star of Radiance. He was the last king of the Eldar in Middle-earth, and the last male descendant of Finwë, except Elrond the Half-Elven. The epesse was given to him because his helm and mail and his shield overlaid with silver and set with a device of white stars shone from afar like a star in sunlight or moonlight, and could be seen by elvish eyes at a great distance if he stood upon a height. Now, there is a bit to unpack in this part for sure. First, now you understand why I read that bit from A Knife in the Dark. His shining helm afar was seen. The countless stars of heaven's field were mirrored in his silver shield, and far into darkness fell his star. Now you get all that. Now, in that passage, we also get another interpretation of his name. Not starlight, but star of radiance. Now, that translation is also found in a 1969 note that's been brought to light in The Nature of Middle-earth, edited by Carl F. Hostetter. There, we read something very similar to the Shibboleth piece. As in the name Gil-galad, Star of Radiance, given to Finwine, last High King of the Eldar, because of the radiance of his silver hair, armor, and shield, that it is said could even in the moonlight be seen from many leagues afar. The same word occurs in the name Galadriel, kinswoman of Finwine, Lady of the Radiant Crown, referring to the shining of her golden hair. All right, we keep diving deeper. Before we get to this Finwine bit, which is totally new to me, let's go back to something from that earlier passage, Eirenion. Now, this is a Sindarin name whose meaning we just read, Scion of Kings. It comes from Erein, the plural of Aran, meaning king, and the patronymic suffix ion, like in Aldarion. But what's with this Finwine? This 1969 note that was included in Nature of Middle-earth seems to be the only place I can find that name. It appears to have the elements Fin, which is the Sindarized form used in names for Finwë, like Curufin, Finarfin, Fingon, and Gwyn, meaning young. We see that in Yarwine, Tom Bombadil's other name, which, even though it's translated oldest, has a literal meaning of old young. So Finwine is young Finwë. Now, one last bit before we put all of this to rest. In the Shibboleth, we learn that his father name was Aratanaro in Quenya, or Radnor in Sindarin, likely meaning noble fire. And no, there's no time to get into the whole parentage of Gil-galad debate. But folks, that is it for today's Word Nerd Wednesday. Come back next week as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. And if there's a word you want to know more about, please let me know by emailing barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, a bonus weekly episode, and a whole lot more. And then join me tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps and follow @Tolkien Times on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.